you want to move on to Google then?
Yeah. Do you have some screenshots prepared for them?
I have a couple.
Yeah, I listened to the entire Google earnings call as well, actually, and that was incredibly interesting to hear. I will share more about it later, but lots of talk about AI. A lot.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. Here we have Google's revenue. For the full year, they still grew revenue by 10%. And you have to think about this. They're growing revenue on top of the craziness that we just saw in 2020 and 2021. So Google's still managing to grow their top line, which I think is sweet. Um, Also, they had a massive FX headwind this quarter. So if you remove the FX headwind, they grew revenue 14% on a full year basis. For the fourth quarter, though, they grew revenue by 7% if you include the FX. However, the operating margin is declining, and Google was talking about how they are going to be increasing their efficiency this year. That's like the big theme with basically every mega cap was like, we're going to be focusing on improving our margins this year. So then I have Google's segments. Search and other revenue dropped. YouTube ads revenue dropped quite a bit, actually. Google Cloud grew by 32%, though. And Google Cloud was the fastest growing cloud out of Microsoft, AWS, and Google Cloud. So those are the only slides that I had screenshotted for this, just like really quick talks.
Yeah, I did not like seeing the YouTube ad revenue go down. That surprised me a bit, but not enough people are giving credit to what actually happened a year ago. And as you said, Daniel, the relevancy to comparing the numbers today of what was being made at the end of 2021, of the end of most of the COVID era. And they talked about this on the call. They're like, hey, like we're comparing these numbers and there's not a lot of growth because there were so many one-time things that happened that were positive to Google's business, which resulted in a spike of all these revenues. And I did go on their revenue chart for the last like 10 years in Stock and Lock. And I saw there were plenty of times, you go back to 2015 where it looked like the revenue top lined. And in that slice of time, you could say, Google's topping off, they hit the market. And then, you keep zooming out time and it goes up. So we're definitely, getting a little bit choppy on revenue the last few quarters, but I think it's a little bit too early to say Google's down. I thought one interesting talking point here. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
Well, again, if you take over the long term, I think FX should basically not be considered. To me, it's just like a short-term thing. Like currencies are going to fluctuate. They're just like stocks. So over the long term, everything should kind of just be neutral. Right now, we're in a tough FX area. Over the next year, that might change. But on an FX neutral basis, like Google did grow 7% year over year on the quarter still, which is like, in my opinion, not bad at all. When it seems like a lot of people are thinking Google's like done. I don't know why, but because of GPT, but I don't know if I subscribe to that yet.
So I identified two different battles happening here, and I want you to pick one to talk about, Daniel. One is phone sales between Google and Apple, and another one is search dominance between Google and Microsoft. So the search dominance thing, Google is obviously market leader, debatable monopoly there. Microsoft's obviously coming in hot with ChatGPT, and there is a huge, huge battle going on there. They talked a lot on the Google earnings call specifically about releasing a lot of AI generated tools and basically taking credit for everything that was happening. Google was like, yeah, that's us. The other battle is on phones. So we did see that Apple reported a sales miss on iPhones. I do want to be a bit hand wavy. They're still selling a lot of iPhones. Okay. We're talking about like analyst estimates and the fact that they missed for the first time since 2015. Like, I get it's a big deal. Google on their call, the CEO said repeatedly, their Pixel 7s are hitting sales records. So while Amazon iPhone sales were going down, Google is saying their Pixel 7 phone is doing amazing. They didn't really give exact numbers. So yeah, phone sales and search. Lots of different shifting things.
Quick comment on the Pixel. I was reading that Google said in every single market where they sell the Google Pixel, they gained market share.
I love the Pixel.
Awesome. Okay. Also, Google owns the largest operating system in the world of Android, which is incredibly hot all over Southeast Asia. Yeah. Anyways, so let's talk about the ChatGPT thing. I feel like I want to know what you heard on the Google call. I have to admit I did not listen to it yet, so I would love to hear if they said anything that you want to share.
Well, they played it on YouTube, which was cool because they obviously own YouTube, and then you can watch it at like 1.5x speed, which is great. There were things I liked
Amazing.
and didn't like. I listened to the Q&A, and with a company as big as Google, they do get like a little political where the analysts will try to ask some questions that point them to give us like numbers. What do you think is going to happen in these next quarters? Like, how are you thinking about, balancing growing your physical products while still focusing on cloud and stuff? And I think some of the answers there got a bit political, but here's the exciting things that I heard. Google, um, Google Cloud is obviously still growing, as you said, at massive rates. They do drop cool numbers too. So YouTube Shorts views, and obviously they monetize Shorts, went from 30 billion at around a year ago to 50 billion today. So that platform is growing massively. They are going to start monetizing Shorts a lot more and are already doing that. And then they also hinted super hard, like quite literally, in the next couple months, you are going to see us launch lots and lots of AI products that piggyback onto search and everything. So the war is on between Microsoft being ChatGPT and then Google with their AI coming into that field. So yeah, they probably said the word AI like 20 plus times. I didn't count, but that was like the main focus of the call was, we are innovating, we are tightening our belt, we're getting more efficient on spend. And that was
Well,
that
if
was mostly the
that's
vibe.
so, I've been hearing a lot of people say that Google has something better than ChatGPT that they just haven't released yet. Like they've just been sitting on it. So, why do you think they're sitting on it? Like, why do you think they didn't release this before ChatGPT came along? A lot of people are saying
Regulatory.
yeah, a lot of people are saying they lost their first mover advantage now. Like, even if Google does release something better, it's like it's not going to catch on anymore. So, what
I
do you think?
I couldn't. I know you're representing multiple people there. I couldn't personally disagree more on like the late mover thing. I think there's already lots of lawsuits coming up with where are you allowed to source your data. Should there be credit given to where you source these things on the internet if they're like parsing from Reddit, Quora, all that stuff. So that is still something that is going to be battled, I think, for years. I also don't know if it's just going to be Microsoft and Google. Like this is such a fast moving space. It's all so new. It's still not clear to me. Is like a bigger, larger incumbent the right companies to take this on, or is it going to be smaller startups that they scoop up? So yeah, I think that they are moving at the right pace. They don't want to get sued. They're making big moves too financially. So DeepMind has been reported in other bets. So like when you read a company's 10K and they segment out revenue, like other bets, just a basket case of here's things we're playing around with. They're moving DeepMind up to, out of other bets, and it will be reported with their. I forgot what they're bucketing it into, maybe services, but I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting as well. So it's going to become more of a frontward facing part of their business, and it's so much more than Chat GPT. Like it integrates into a lot more than just search. So I think we're going to just have to wait and see how they plan to integrate it, but more importantly, how they can monetize it.
Yeah. I totally agree with you on the regulatory stuff. Like, I know Google is always facing regulatory issues and they're being fined all the time. It's just like a regular part of their business now. So I'm almost wondering, because you got to think about this. Google knows search the best out of any company on the planet. It's what everyone uses. So I'm almost wondering, like, were they not using some sort of chat GPT thing, as you said, for to make sure that they got all the regulations right? And then in that case, would that mean that a company like Microsoft coming out with their product is now overlooking things? Because there is like, to me, there's like that huge regulatory risk around a product like this. And how are they going to manage it? Do they even know what they're stepping into? Probably, but like, I don't know. Maybe that's part of the reason that Google has been sitting on it for so long. And I don't know. I don't think that they really needed to release it. Like Google search was working great. They didn't really have competition. So why break something or change something that's working so well?
I do think that you have to innovate to stay on top of the curve. Like if they never changed, I do think
Yeah.
people would slowly eat at their market share. It's a balance. So YouTube started getting sued up the wazoo. YouTube is now historically one of the greatest acquisitions of all time, some will say. But they were facing a lot of regulatory issues about a decade ago, people posting copyrighted content, like things that almost would have like killed YouTube. And it's the balance of running a business, in my opinion, of move fast and break things or like be slower, but a little bit more methodical in your approach. And I think it's finding that right balance. Obviously, Microsoft and ChatGPT, more of the move fast break things, Google becoming a little bit slower, but it's just too early to tell who made the right call there. And I don't think this is a one company seizes all type market, right? I think these products are going to get easier and easier to make. They're also running the infrastructure plays. So when other companies build up AI products, there's a very high likelihood that they're going to be using either Microsoft or Google or even AWS, backend services. One part of this that people don't talk about, which is why bigger companies need to get in there for search, is just executing these queries. Google on the call said that in this past quarter, they reached the highest number of queries per second. So you have to think the amount of computing power and infrastructure you need to deliver millisecond level responses, like distributed to get queries from all over the globe. That's a moat. Like you can't have a startup company with like $1 million seed round, like build that, right? So it's weird because they get two sides of this, right? Like they're trying to make money on the consumer play where they already have with search, but even if they don't get that fully, they're also running like the infrastructure on the back end that people need to build that stuff on top of. So it seems like a win-win for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't think there's going to be one AI company. I hope there's not one AI company that just like takes over everything. I think there's going to be some competition. Capital Growth has an interesting comment here. I think the big opportunity for Microsoft isn't search. It's including AI into Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. I think the way Google search works makes it easier to have ads, aka dollars. I agree with this. And I believe that Google announced that they're going to be implementing some sort of chatbot into Docs and another one of their products. I think it was Gmail. So they're going to start implementing, their AI technology into their own services, just like Microsoft is going to do as well. And Google has multiple products with over 1 billion users across the planet. So if they do that and it works well, I mean, man, I don't know. I think it's going to be fine. I'm definitely with you. I think this is a wait and see. I am not panicking at all. Google has fended off competition massively for like 2 decades now. So I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt here. They have been I think it was in like 2015 or something, but they said we are now an AI company. Like we are no longer a search company, we are an AI company. So in my opinion, they're actually ahead of the curve here. They've been investing in AI for over 7 years now or whatever it is. And I don't know. I'm like not really that concerned, to be honest.
So here's another bold comment. AWS, when I was looking it up, had around, they were saying up to 200 million Prime subscribers. That's been growing year over year. It's great. They did actually drop on the call. They didn't get specific, but they said 80 million YouTube, just YouTube and then YouTube Music subscribers and trialers. So they did not break down like what percentage of the 80 million was trialers, which was frustrating to me. I text searched the 10K, Daniel. Like I tried to find the number. If someone knows, please let us know in the chat. But let's just say 80 million. Those are people paying monthly for YouTube, and that is growing super quick too. So
I don't think they include their YouTube subscription revenue in their YouTube ad revenue as well. So I did see an interesting comment that said YouTube ad revenue could have declined year over year because a lot more people are subscribing to YouTube Premium, which actually takes away from YouTube ad revenue.
Yeah, I still see that business growing over time. They're doing great creator splits. I listened to Mr. Beast interview on Lex Friedman podcast. And as long as there's people like Mr. Beast and they're investing everything into YouTube because that's the best distribution platform for them to, basically sell on where they get money. And then the buyers who buy with their time and eyeballs, which gives revenue. It's kind of a marketplace if you think about it. There's just an ecosystem they're building that I believe is a moat and is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, so Avanish, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, says ChatGPT is an NLP model trained on data that provides chat-like experiences. I don't think it's going to replace the search engine, which is a crawler for websites, versus NLP that answers questions. What do you think, Jake?
That's a fair point. I already see them as more or less the same. I've already been saying, my phone's going to go off. I've already been saying, okay, Google, and just asking it questions and using Google to answer questions. So to me, there's a huge crossover. One counterpoint I have to this is I don't think the consumer actually cares what the implementation is. And at the end of the day, if the consumer is getting the answer to their question, whether that be through like a list of results or just asking it, I would actually argue that it's since it's not different from the consumer side, the underlying implementation is less important.
Yeah, fair enough. Capital Growth says, even if you're wrong, Daniel, which I definitely could be, it's not like Google is going to go bankrupt. You will see them lose some market share and they will be able to pivot. Yeah, like I think that Google has so many things going on. And I think over time, their business is going to become less and less reliant on search. So, yeah, I agree. I'm just waiting to see if this takes market share. Like, I want to see over the next year or 2 years, 3 years, if Google finally can lose its 90% search market share.
Yeah. So I felt like a terrible person for doing this, Daniel, but I did it. I ran the numbers on the layoffs and the cost. So Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they all did layoffs, and they all said how much money they were spending on those layoffs. So I want to be very clear. This is a very mathematical conversation. As we said in the last stream, definitely, heart goes out to anyone that's getting laid off. Genuinely feel bad. Also on the investing side, I do think that these are important things to talk about. And I don't know what's going to come out of this, Daniel. So at the very least, you'll learn. But here's what I found. Microsoft, 10,000 layoffs, 800 million spend. Amazon, 18,000 layoffs, $640 million spend. Google, 12,000. They gave a range, 1.9 to 2.3 billion. So running the math on that to do a little ratio here, Microsoft spending $80,000 per severed worker. Amazon is spending $35,556, and that is rounded up. And I just took 2 billion out of this range they gave to make the numbers easy. Google is spending by far double of anyone else, 166,000 per severed worker. Now that is more than a year's salary for many people in this country. What do you think of this? And is there anything meaningful to get out of this, or do you think I'm just getting a little bit too pedantic in the numbers here?
I mean, the only thought coming to my head is it means that Google is simply giving their employees more, which means, I don't know what that could mean. That's just what the numbers are looking like.
Also, maybe like the type of worker, like, is it more expensive to sever a tech worker or versus someone like in a warehouse? Like, I guess it's just not clear to me. But when I read this number as a shareholder, I was like, wow, like that's really, really expensive. Like, I actually own all three of these stocks. And then I was kind of like 800 million sound a little bit more reasonable. Anyways, just wanted to make that point. I hadn't heard anyone talk or think about the layoffs of that in terms of cost per worker of the severance charges that the company incurs, which, they do have to write off. So there you have it.
Let's we just spent a lot of time on Google.